They got it.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you so
cool.
much.
Thank you.
Pretty good. I had a meeting before this, but.
Oh, so you've been in the thick of it already this morning? All right.
You're not late. You're not late.
You're perfectly on time.
You got
You got
minutes to
3
spare.
Oh, did it start at 9:30?
Yeah.
I must have done that to myself.
Do you want to go do something else for half an hour?
I think the Outlook invite says 9:15. Yeah, because the first time I showed up here way too early.
9:30 to 11:30?
I think I did that to myself because I know myself.
I do that exact same thing. My meetings all start 5 or 10 minutes before they're supposed to, just so I'm sure I'm there on time.
My mother has every single clock or 8 minutes ahead so that she can set herself. Her like car clock, I swear, is like 9 or 10 minutes fast at this point. And then you go, well, we're late. And she goes, no, we're not. It's 10 minutes fast. So really, we're 3
Like,
minutes
what are
early.
you
So it's
accomplishing?
like,
Yeah.
If you're doing the math, I feel like it's not helping you.
Yeah, I'm guilty of exactly the same thing. Like I set my watch 5 minutes fast. My truck, I set to like minutes fast. Like, yeah, who are you deluding at that point? You know you did it. You're the one who did it.
The subtraction, then there's no point. Just put it at the right time.
It's like you set multiple alarms, but then know that you're gonna ignore the first one.
I'm feeling kind of.
Well,
over
I
here.
mean, yeah, those are needed, though. I feel like.
I have 5. My wife thinks I'm insane.
That's
She's
all.
like, that's too much. Because the first one goes off like a half hour before I have to get up.
You're like, I just need a warning.
You need to emotionally prepare for the fact that I have to get up.
Yeah, right.
Whoa, it splits it into multiple.
Yes, yeah, focus
This thing,
on.
Yeah,
this thing's cool.
Yeah, this
Great.
thing is really cool.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a intro to like a 90s movie.
Yeah.
When 8 people are picked to live in a house and start getting real, it's like the real world.
Okay, I think we're set up tech wise.
Okay.
So. Unless you guys are planning on joining the Zoom meeting. We're set up.
Do you want me to join the Zoom meeting?
You're
I'm
taking
sorry.
notes.
I don't
Like,
think
you're
it's
good. You're
That
good
is
doing it.
so weirdly shady.
I'm
happy
sorry,
to
no.
Join the Zoom meeting if you'd like.
No, it's mostly, if you want me to make you a co-host and you in it, then you can, but that's the only thing I could do. Everything else is
That's
set up.
so funny. I'm happy to. Would you like me to, so I can help admit people?
You can, okay. Don't stress too much about it since you're taking notes and stuff.
So should we get started?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Are we recording?
We are recording.
I'm gonna.
All right, so you guys have any updates for Article 10?
I do not. Like I told you last time, the minute I have an update for you, I will immediately contact you.
Well, okay, so we have some current contract language.
Okay,
articles.
great.
You guys gave us Article 1 and 2, so I already
You
signed.
guys are good with those?
Yeah,
Fantastic. I'm gonna get a folder together
Yeah,
of,
1 and 2. In your last scorecard thing, you said 14 you had also given us, but you hadn't, but we're also okay with TAing that. You just didn't give us an actual proposal that time.
Hang on a second. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Hang on, let me take a look real quick. 14.
that's like the copyright.
Okay, let me go back and check. That was the one that we had asked someone else to take a look at. So I will let me go back and check. I think we might be CCL on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We'll
No
get it to you.
worries.
We'll get it to you quickly if that's the case, and if not, whatever changes we have, I'll make sure that we get it to you next week.
Okay, and then we also are we're ready to TA Article 17. You can just see, I made 2 very minor changes. One is I just got rid of this portion you crossed out in 17.6. Just so it's neater, and then I added GAU, so just that to specify it's a GAU website. But everything else is exactly the same as your last proposal.
All right, so we've got, I just want to take notes here. So we're ready to TA. Well, I gotta take one more look at it. I'm not gonna do it while I'm sitting.
Yeah,
in
no,
front of you
that's
guys,
fair,
but
that's fair. I mean, if
we're-
you want
yeah.
like a few minutes just to read it over, I
Uh,
also have
1,
the
2, 17.
I
These
have a
might be
copy of the
ready.
contract, or you, I think you.
Yeah, I've got one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, maybe, maybe if we caucus or something, we can take a look real quick and then maybe come back and maybe we can even PM today.
Okay, do you want to do that now, or?
No, let's use the
Okay.
time, let's use the time it's available, because like I said, I think it's likely we may just have them signed and bring them at the next session or whatever. I don't want to waste the time we have together, especially because we're gonna be short time over the next couple weeks.
Okay, um. All right, so then we have and if you want, this is the one that I've already signed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay, then Article 3. We have, and I've sent you electronically all the.
Perfect, thank you.
So I can just take a look here.
What is that?
Article 3 is consultation. Give me a second to pull it up on Zoom. Okay, so we are trying to address the concerns that you raised last time about requesting a consultation with the president. So we didn't cross out designee in this one because that was a misunderstanding last time. Essentially, what we're trying to say is that, you know, if a consultation specifically with the president is requested, then you can't appoint a designee for that consultation. And one consultation must occur, you know, after the president's inauguration. Otherwise, consultations can only be requested over university actions that affect terms and conditions of employment, or mutually agreeable matters. And any consultation with the president is subject to rules, including that we would outline the purpose of the meeting. There'd be no collective bargaining, which is already included in 3.2. There is no requirement that policy outcomes have to result from the meeting. There is no discussion of matters that are pertinent to the implementation or administration of the agreement. So it's not like we're not discussing minor stuff like grievances and things like that. GAU can't request more than one consultation with the president in an academic year.
Can you just, as I'm reading this, can you walk me through how you feel the phrase may only be requested over university actions affecting terms and conditions of employment? How can that be true and also rules 2, 3, and 4 be true? Like I'm trying to figure out, I mean, because if you're talking about something that affects terms and conditions of employment, but you're not going to be bargaining and you don't want a policy outcome, like I'm just trying to, can you just kind of walk me through
Sure.
how you're thinking that would work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be about university policies that would affect us, and it wouldn't necessarily be things that are changes to the contract, right? But they could affect how, you know, our employment conditions. And, you know, there's no prohibition that a policy outcome might result from it, but we're not trying to go there to convince, first of all, we're not trying to go there to change something in the contract. We are not insisting that something come out of the meeting policy wise, but we do want to share our concerns, you know, if it's that serious for us. And you know, it wouldn't be about like the nitty gritty of like the implementation of the contract, you know, like, oh, like so and so individual, you know, was not paid properly at this time, you know, like that's not the intention of the meeting.
Anybody else have any questions on this one? I think in general, I think it's still sort of a problematic article for us, but I will tell you, I do appreciate, you guys wanted to be able to go back and put some guardrails on what previously was pretty wide open.
Yeah, and
So I
also, I
appreciate
mean,
that.
I forgot to mention, I mean, if there's other things that, other guardrails that would address your concerns, we're happy to entertain that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll certainly take a look at this one. And like I said, I appreciate the fact that you guys went back and tried to address some of the things that we had brought up on the previous meeting. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Obviously, this is one I can't give you an answer for this right now.
No, that's fine.
So, all right.
Then we have, unfortunately, we're not bringing any new articles today, but we are responding to the articles that you,
That's fine.
yeah. So the next one we'll talk about will be Article 8. So, uh,
Thank you.
so again, all the changes are on the second page.
Okay.
And we've basically kept most of the same language as your last proposal.
Okay.
We did add a carve out in 8.3F, so instead of striking it out entirely, we essentially have a carve out for the first three cases in 8.3A, which is birth of a child, placement of a child in an adoption, or birth through surrogacy. And essentially, the idea is that would be to maintain some parity with what is in the faculty contract, who are also eligible for up to 8 weeks in their first year of employment. And it's just to be respectful of the fact that GAs join grad school at diverse stages of their life, and we should be respectful of that, just as we are for faculty. So that's the main concern there. And in terms of 8.4, we accept the changes that you made for 8.4B, D, and F.
All right, so when we look at this, I mean, I'll put it against it, but basically the only changes we should be looking at would be in 8.3. Everything else it should match. The intention is that it matches what we had previously shared
Yes,
with you all.
it should be the same except for 8.3F, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for that. Appreciate the, looks like we got some significant common ground there. Obviously, we got some work to do on that. We'll take that under consideration here. Robert, do you have any questions about that one?
No.
Okay, all right. Great.
Then we have Article 4, which I will let Hannah present, and
Okay.
there, I will warn you that
We've had
the
some
formatting, the formatting thing is still a
It's
huge
starting-
issue.
it's
Yeah,
a-
yeah,
stuff.
The struggle is real.
yeah, it really is, it really is.
If you guys have a digital copy, I highly recommend looking at simple markup. You can't get all the details about
Yeah,
what's
because
being struck out, but it looks pretty nice in simple markup. That's
Yeah,
how I
honestly,
recommend
most of
doing
it can just be done with like tabs. and-
Okay.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah,
Who's taking over notes while I talk?
I'll do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Okay. So. I don't know if you wanna take a moment to look over everything. There are a
I
couple.
think you should just walk
sections-
them through. There's a lot of.
There's a lot of like moving things.
Why don't you just walk us through it?
Yeah.
I will. Okay, so I started out by formally, so you might remember that letter of appointment was the beginning, it was 4.1 before.
Mhm.
So I've shifted that down to 4.2 to really spell out what the letter of offer is. and all of the terms and conditions related to it.
Mhm.
So starting right off at the top, right, a letter of offer shall be sent to graduate assistants before enrolling at the university, detailing information on the expected financial package available to students for the duration of their graduate program. I think that's a pretty fair and broad definition. Right, it's an important document for recruiting and retaining top performing graduate students and is a standard practice for graduate programs across the country. I think we had talked about kind of all of that last week and we were on pretty mutual ground about that kind of definition. Obviously, letters of offer are sent out by the different departments across the university. And I'm not sure that we would be able to, in the same way as the letter of appointment, say like, these are all the things required to go into the letter of offer. But I did try to include some details that are likely in most, if not all of the letters of offer, right? So 4.1A, at the discretion of the appropriate department, the details included of the letter of offer for incoming graduate assistants may include, but is not limited to, appointment start date, duration and type, right? So for duration and type, we're talking, are you 9-month or 12-month? Are you a teaching assistant or a research assistant? Your initial stipend value and pay period information, right? So you're paid bi-weekly, here's what you're gonna get. Tuition remission benefits, additional funding awards or awards offered, right? So if you get like a Grinter scholarship, right, that would go in there. Health insurance information, and deadlines on the acceptance and enrollment process. And then a link to the collective bargaining agreement, which details additional benefits, right? So that's where all of our stuff is. I don't know that we can enforce that. I just wanted to think of all the things that were in my letter of offer and are likely in most letters of offer, right? So we're just trying to get a definition on the page. Following that for 4.12, for all incoming international students, additional information on the enrollment process must be sent via email upon acceptance of their letter of offer, right? So them accepting is them confirming their intention to enroll at the university. This is what we were talking about last time, so that they have enough time to get specifically their Gator start and their social security and like all their UF stuff set up. So really, basically what we're saying, right, is like the department sends a letter of offer, that's them essentially offering a seat, the student accepts their seat, and then UF sends an email that says, hey, you're an international student, here are all the things that you need to enroll, right? So that's kind of the 2 steps that we're laying out there. And then 4.13, I think I moved the entirety of what used to be like 4.6 up there, which is basically the sentence that says, the university won't enforce multi-year contracts, right? So now the new 4.13 is laying out all of the kind of stipulations and legality of the letter of offer, right?
So I think that was previously 4.4,
Okay, 4.4.
right?
So it might look like, it looks like it's been entirely struck out when you go through it.
Okay,
But I cut and pasted it into this new section, okay?
okay,
So although the letter of offer may outline the total financial package proposed, right? So that's the multi-year part, to support a graduate assistant. The university does not make any specific promise of the appointment or assignment details. So you'll recognize that as previous contract language. Further, details in the letter of offer are not grievable. That's again from the previous contract. Although the multi-year financial support detailed in the letter of offer is not binding, this is my new language in this regard, right? So then I specified beyond the current appointment period, the university recognizes that multi-year funding packages should be honored whenever possible, contingent on the factors outlined in this article. So really what we're trying to do is take all of the disparate pieces of the letter of offer, spell them out in the contract, and put the terms and conditions up with the definition.
Regarding the international piece, is the 60 days before, is that like in practice, is that common to have that much lead time?
I don't think this is standard practice at all. This is something we want to introduce because we've had a bunch of international students who have not been onboarded on time, and so they're not receiving their paychecks on time when they first begin. So basically, we're trying to institute a system.
And
Once they
most of it
accept
has
their
to do
seat-
with lack of information about what's
Yeah.
needed to be
Right,
on board.
no, I completely understand
Yeah.
that, I'm just saying like, do offer letters, are they sent out that far in advance that we would be able to comply with the 60-day?
I would
ask
assume
here?
so, because decision day is April 15th.
Mhm.
right? So like
Yeah,
on a
there's
standard
a-
academic
Yeah,
calendar,
grad, for prospective graduate students, it's
Yeah.
like an agreement, April 15th is the
Yeah.
day, so that you all could,
Right.
you know, look at all of your offers.
right?
But I think we're kind of, there's an admission,
Mhm.
right, which is not the letter of offer.
Mhm.
So the units, and it's very different, obviously,
Oh,
to the admission, that will just give an admission, that yes or no. Then a letter of offer comes. Now, I don't know in the department how that is, how, what's the gap time?
Yeah.
Because they're looking at their funding packages that are coming down from the state, as well as grants received.
right.
So that, you know, you're looking at different things to judge when the letters of offer then go to the top students, right?
I can say in my experience, my letter of offer came with my acceptance package. That's the whole point of the letter of offer, right? Is if the
Yeah.
university says, I want you, I can offer you 6 years of funding at this level. And that's how you decide what program you wanna go to, right? So if you guys need just like a bit that says, you know, 60 days when possible, that's
Yeah,
totally
there's-
fine. The intention is to give them some time
Yeah.
to go through all of these external processes so that they can be onboarded properly.
And I apologize, I'm from place of ignorance here. So you get an offer letter
Mhm.
by April 15th, that's what you're saying?
They have to decide.
They
You
have
have to
We
decide, you have to
decide by
accept
April
by
15th, right?
Yeah.
And so in theory, we should all receive our letter of offer before that. How
Yeah.
are we making our decision if we don't have it?
Thank you.
That also
Yeah, I'm pretty
obviously,
sure I received mine.
I-
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I've applied to multiple things, right? And so all of the ones that I've received, all packages I've received have been before the
You get like a
deadline.
formal letter,
So you
yeah,
decide April 15th.
something like that, yeah.
60 days would start from that point.
Yeah, once you make your, right, so it's basically saying, once the student accepts their position at the university, right? So in theory, the letter of offer comes before that. You make an informed judgment based on all the offers you get from all the different universities or programs or departments that you're receiving from. You make the decision, and then once the student makes the decision, kind of this window begins, right? Where like, if it's April 15th, which it likely is, right? Then you have all of May, June, July, right into mid-August, and that's the time that these students
Right.
need to be enrolled
Well,
properly.
it could happen after April 15th. The memo just says UF programs can't require them to give an answer before the 15th. And the reason is that memo is with a bunch of other graduate schools to make sure that everyone can consider all the offers on the table at that point. So sometimes it does happen after.
And the reason I put 60 days and I didn't say by April 15th is because there are some programs I assume that are off cycle, right? I know that there are some master's programs that start in January. All this is intending to do is to give international students a couple months to get their social security number and get everything started so that they can onboard properly. It's not like, we're not trying to trick you. We're just trying to give
Also,
like
the
a
60,
reasonable amount of time.
the 60 days is not 60 days after April, it's 60
Yeah.
days before their start date.
Yeah,
Thanks for clarifying that.
okay. Any other questions on the 4.1? I know it's a lot of new stuff, but I do think we're coming from a relatively equal,
Yeah,
like,
I,
grounding on this.
I appreciate the fact that you've definitely laid out attempting to address many of the issues that we've talked about, not only at the table, but over the last year in terms of where some of the points of confusion and lack of clarity are. So I appreciate the opportunity to review what you've done here because you clearly have again, sort of tried to coalesce all those different things into one spot. So
Yeah.
I appreciate
I
that.
think your exact wording was we need to square up on this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just wanted to lay it out, and then once we're all coming from the same definition, we can kind of iron out these other pieces, right? Moving forward throughout, I don't think there's a ton of stuff immediately, right? And the letter of appointment, I shifted the like,
I'm so sorry. I just thought of a question. before you
Okay.
move on. So, and I apologize because I wasn't here last week, but so letter of offer is from the graduate program saying you're accepted into our graduate program. And which may include
it comes
a
from the
graduate
department.
assistantship.
Exactly, it comes
Right.
from the department
Okay.
and it specifies what your aid package is.
Okay.
So some other universities, so like I pulled this from like Arizona State University is where I got a lot of these details from, because I was just trying to ground it in what another university does. They literally sent out an offer letter and then they sent out what they call like a recruitment package, like a financial package officially. But like here, I can tell you from my department, which is sociology and criminology and law, I received a letter that says, we'd like to offer you a teaching assistantship. You're gonna be paid 19.3 like for a 9-month appointment as a teaching assistant, right? And we expect to offer you that, I started last year through like spring of 2028, so they offered me 6 years of funding at
Okay.
that level, and so basically what they're saying is, we're gonna give you 6 years to complete your PhD, I don't have a master's, that's why I got an extra year. And
Sorry, what
that,
was the name of the second thing that they sent? The
it was like a
benefits thing?
recruitment
Recruitment
page, I
letter,
believe.
okay.
I have that literally pulled up if you want to see it.
Yeah, actually, you linked to it in the
I did,
comments.
yeah, it's in the comment section,
So
so.
some people might get a letter of offer, but they are not offered an assistantship. But everyone who's in graduate program is gonna get a letter of offer from their program saying,
Yeah.
hey, come do your PhD here.
It might also
And
say,
then-
we're not gonna fund you at all,
Right.
and the offer is simply, you can be a graduate student in this program, but we're not talking about
So-
those people, we're only talking
Got
about
it. So this is
assistants.
like different than being your letter of being appointed.
Right.
Okay, this is me because I wasn't here last week. I just wanted to make
Exactly,
sure.
right.
That's the whole point, is we're trying to
Yeah.
distinguish those.
Distinguish the letter of offer from the
Offer.
letter of
The
appointment.
letter of offer is broader. It's your
It's a-
welcome to the UF. This is like.
This is your financial
Yeah, yeah.
package that you're offered when you accept your position.
Right, like, in the letter that I got, for example, it said like the biology department will offer you 5 years of funding.
Mhm.
But my appointment is for 9 months, right? So
Right.
the things that pertain to like the rest of the article are about the appointment
Right.
itself.
Mhm.
And this is trying to distinguish the fact that, the letter of offer is important, and it helps with, recruiting students, but also for students themselves to know what to plan for. But also to know that that is separate from the letter of appointment, because before that, we didn't even have it in
Yeah,
the.
no, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Absolutely, yeah, so basically, it started with letter of appointment, and then all of a sudden in 4.4, it says the university won't recognize multi-year financial offers,
Mhm.
which is separate from your letter of appointment.
Right,
So
right.
I basically wanted to shift that out and give a definition to why you're saying that out of the blue in the contract, and it's because you get a letter of offer,
So
and
can,
it's really important.
so can I just, and you may get to this, so I apologize if I'm jumping the gun. So with relationship to 4.1 and 4.2 in a general sense, not necessarily what you have written, would the overall intention of your proposal be that everyone would get a letter of offer and in their first year get a separate letter of appointment?
Yes,
Yes.
That's the intention.
and all the subsequent letters of appointment.
Right, no, that, I mean, that, it's the first year that we've always kind of struggled with, because
Mhm.
in many times, as we've talked about, we've had cases where oftentimes your letter of offer
Right.
serves as your first,
Hmm.
your first letter
Letter
of
of
appointment.
Mine's
appointment.
completely separate, so I hadn't even
Right.
thought of that.
There's,
Yeah.
I think we just want to be somewhat thoughtful and deliberate about how we, because I think that would be it, for some programs and departments, that I think that would be a change if they had to issue 2 instead of the 1. Right, so, okay, but no, yeah, I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Completely separate, so I hadn't even thought
Okay.
of that.
Yeah, same, yeah.
Okay, again, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yes,
Last week, we were talking about distinguishing the two as well,
Mhm.
too. So-
No, I agree that, again, I just want to make sure I understand if your preference is, we're saying, look, even in the first year, we want to have them to be separate documents. That's I just want to make sure I understand what the proposal is.
I think that would make more sense from like, just like,
Get it.
receiving the 2 separate
I get it.
letters. Yeah.
and
yeah.
if you're saying that the multi-year funding is not enforceable, which is what the contract says and what you said verbally last week, right? We need to distinguish those 2 things, because if someone uses a letter of offer as a letter of appointment, they're gonna think that that's legally binding.
Well, and there's definitely confusion that has erupted from that.
Mhm.
We've had multiple cases of that we've struggled with, so I appreciate
And
that.
I was surprised, honestly, in the last few weeks, when you said so plainly, like, that is not enforceable, which is wild to me, because that is such a concrete and definitive way that, like, that's why we come to a school, right? It's
Right.
like, you get all this information in your letter of offer, and then you make an informed decision, and you assume that that is legally binding, right? I've been offered 6 years of funding to do this. Like, if I lose my funding halfway through, I can't afford to stay here.
Right,
Like, that is such a huge thing, and that's why I added the language that says, like, literally whenever possible, this needs to be enforced. Because, or honored, right?
no, I get it. I think
Because
that makes sense.
that would be impossible.
So with that in mind, with having a separate letter of offer and letter of appointment for the first year, would that change kind of 4.1A1 then? Because it says appointment start date, duration and type? Or that just kind
This
of
is just
be,
detailed in the letter of offer. So
okay,
this is just like, your letter of offer is likely going to include your first day, right? So if they're saying, hey, we're gonna offer you 6 years of funding, you're gonna start on August 15th.
first day of your graduate studies? Okay, so maybe it's a different word than appointment start
And
date.
none of this is,
Well, they're separate, actually. you have the appointment calendar that runs, they actually start before the actual day of first day of school.
We do,
They
it's like a
start
week
on
in
August
advance.
15th, and the provost sets those calendar dates for each term. And so it is a official start date of employment, is August 15th. Class academically don't start until August 23rd or later.
Right,
on.
right.
So they are two separate dates.
So, okay, so we might need to just
Yeah.
kind of clarify
Okay.
that the appointment start date, duration and type would be in the appointment letter, not the letter of offer. It might say that you're
It could be
being
employment,
offered an appointment.
employment start date would probably
Yeah,
be
just,
what you want.
just to avoid the confusion of.
Correct.
That's
their-
fine, yeah.
Okay, I just
And
wanted to, again, make
this
sure I
is
understand.
all, what the intention was, right, is under this A statement that says these details include but are not limited to, right? This is not every department everywhere needs to send out a specific letter of offer that details all of these things. But it probably says that anyway, so we might as well recognize that in the contract itself.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that the statement that you made is a good one with respect to, this is an important, powerful component of as a student/student employee is going to weigh their options. If
Mhm.
this information isn't included, how are they gonna make a decision?
Yeah.
Like, they need to know this stuff, so I do have one other follow-up, and this may be more for Tom or Judy, but probably also you all. Is withholding the details of the assignment in the first year in the offer letter, does that serve as a detractor from allowing people to make a decision?
Oh, I would assume so. Just on
So
a
again, I just want to be
personal level.
mindful then, I want to be mindful about, I understand keeping them separate, but they may say, well, look, I might accept it, but there's a big difference between if my assignment is going to be working in a lab versus me having to teach biolab.
Mhm.
And I don't want to then confuse the issue and have the details in both, so I just bring that up as something I think we might want to wrestle with.
I think that might all be, and you're welcome to weigh in as well. I think that's probably all on the individual departments and then on the individual students to make those decisions.
Okay.
Right, like,
Yeah, 'cause I
Yeah.
think even the nature, if you're being competitive for grad applicants, the types of assignments are gonna be different from program to program.
Sure.
Like, the research teaching balance for
Yeah,
college of medicine versus college of journalism are gonna be very different.
Right.
So-
and even individual to individual, like,
Right.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And in some cases, you want the student to get here and decide whether they want to do more teaching or research and leave that
Okay.
negotiable.
I think if you all on the UF side want to make this a more solid process and have some sort of requirement, like the letter of appointment across departments, I honestly think that would be really helpful for the university. I think it would be helpful for graduate students, but I think it would be helpful for the university.
Yeah.
I can tell you, so my wife started a year before I did here, and so I knew I was going to UF, so I applied to 4 different programs, right? I applied to 3 PhDs and a master's, all at the university. And one department offered me a spot, but they didn't tell me that they would fund me. They basically said, you can accept and I'll tell you by August if you have funding. And I said, I can't take your seat. Like, and that's all at the same university. And so another department offered me funding. I said, well, obviously I have to do that, right? So we're even talking about like, there are units that can't do this, right? And obviously that was like grant funding. They were like, maybe we'll get this grant, but we won't know until later. Like, as a student, I can't take that seat.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
if I have a funded spot, it just gets ruled out.
Alright.
So,
Thank you for that.
yeah, that's just like an insight into what's going on our end.
You want to go down to 4.4?
Sure, yeah, in 4.2, really all it is we changed the language from like the cheat sheet to like.
Okay,
they,
yeah,
like,
we talked
we-
about that last time.
Yeah, and I just made it all kind of match up and sound right. I'm pretty sure the website address stayed the same. Length of appointment, I'm pretty sure that also stayed the same, right? So the university is recognizing that year-long appointments provide job security. 4.4, the FTE. Okay, so I did add some extra language here, or I think I might have added this entire new thing, right? So we talked about the length of the appointment, but we also mentioned verbally last week, you might remember that having a 0.5 FTE is really important for international students.
Mhm.
So in the same way that we have the length of appointment, I added a spot that says FTE of appointment, right, to kind of match that language. There is no formal limit for the FTE of a graduate assistant. That's basically us saying like, we can't force you to do this, right? That's kind of the general rule. However, in line with the university initiative set to standardize GA appointments, right? So we recognize, right, isn't it the provost's office that's trying to put everyone on 0.5 anyway?
Yeah, that was like 2022.
right?
Yeah.
Fall 22.
Yeah.
So, right, in line with university initiatives to standardize GA appointments, the standard FTE for a graduate student, for a graduate assistant appointment is 0.5 FTE. The university recognizes that this standard is important for the base compensation rate of graduate assistants, including international students that are barred from employment beside their assistantship. So that's basically saying like, you guys want to put everyone on FTE, we want to put everyone on FTE, and it's very important for everyone, including international students. That's really all that says. It's not enforceable, or it's not intended to necessarily be enforceable, but it's
Right.
recognizing these initiatives that were previously just like happening, but not in the contract at all.
I just want to make
Recruited.
it, it's recruited.
Yeah.
It's not all graduates.
Okay.
And that's important for international
If
students, because
that's-
if they're being recruited to come to the US, they need to have that 25
They're
requirement.
recruited,
sure,
and
yeah.
they must not.
Right, but on the other
If
side,
Special
yeah,
circumstance, will warrant that change of an FTE, like you're paying at a higher rate, you know, that type of thing.
right. Or there are situations, sometimes you get funding where you could hire a master's student at a 0.25, and you don't want to be precluded from doing that for a student who's already in your program.
If
Worded
you
as
guys
technical
could take
term
kind of
versus
some of the lift
required on
on
this one.
fixing that language, then
Yeah.
that would be great. Because I don't think at least I'm not exactly clear on that distinction,
Yeah.
right? So that might be a point that, you know. I just think if it's happening anyway, we might as well recognize it. If we're
Right.
already talking about length of appointment and we are talking about international student interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the intention of that. Okay, moving through, that's all struck out. The new 4.5 says when appointed, employees shall be provided with criteria concerning reappointment. And then I think I swapped the sentences, so it started with upon written request, GAU shall be provided written information. I literally just moved that to the second sentence because it makes more sense like this, right? So like when appointed, employees shall be provided with criteria, and then GAU can ask for that if we need it. The previous language is,
Just the office aware.
yeah, upon written request, UFF GAU shall be provided written information regarding established guidelines for teaching assistant appointments, which is narrow. I think I removed teaching, I just
Mhm.
said appointments. When appointed, employees shall be provided with criteria concerning reappointment. And just as I was doing a close read and edit, I was like, it just makes more sense to say like, employees will be provided this and then we can ask for it.
So I appreciate, but I think the insertion of the word progress is not that does not represent a small change, I think, from our perspective. Because I think that
Okay.
implies some sort of like intermediate update that I think is very ambiguous. I'm not sure exactly what is the intention of how you wrote it that way. When you say GAU shall be provided with written information regarding assistant progress, what does that contain in your mind?
The essence that I was getting from this, right, is basically like GAU, right? We can be provided written information regarding established guidelines for assistant appointmentships.
Right,
When appointed, they shall also be given criteria for reappointment.
right,
And so because it's specifying reappointment, why I said progress is because it sounds like basically the union is saying we can ask for details about their reappointment, which is contingent on their progress, right? So
Sure.
if this is like sort of what I'm getting from it, right, is like maybe this is a grievance situation and like the union can ask on behalf of the student, like what's going on with their appointment and reappointment.
hmm
It seems like something like evaluations, right? So
Right.
like evaluations or like their file, which I assume also has like their grades, could be requested because if we need to argue on behalf of their reappointment, we need to know, are they satisfying all of their like
So, yeah, no, I think
requirements?
that's the same place that my mind went. I guess it almost seems to imply that you would want an update on their evaluation before we would give because once we issue the evaluation, then it's an evaluation. It
Mhm.
almost sounds like you're asking for like an informal update, like a mid-term
This is-
evaluation,
This is all
something.
also upon written request. This is like not we're asking for this for every student all the time. I'm not even sure if we've
It would be
ever
better
used
if you
it.
asked it for everybody. I guess that's what I'm saying, because if you decide, hey, we have let's take an example that we hope doesn't happen. We're interested in filing a chapter grievance in a particular program. There's 50 students. And so you say, look, we want progress on these 50 students in this program. I'm not sure what the expectation would be in terms of what, like, are you looking for an informal letter from all their supervisors based on if I were to evaluate them today? I don't think that's what you're asking
No.
for.
And you're asking about
Access to the-
academic process, progress, I mean,
Yeah.
that's FERPA anyhow.
Yeah, we
gave
can't
that
give you that part.
information.
It
Yeah,
was just
that's-
already,
That's the
that's
big thing.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. You're welcome to adjust it. I was just trying to make
Yeah.
it clearer
I just
from
didn't,
the language.
yeah,
that
I just wanted to
existed.
clarify that when you say progress, you were referring to academic progress, not like progress in your assistantship towards your
Oh, yeah,
research
that's
as
a good
an
question.
assistantship or teaching assistantship.
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Well,
I
those are
don't-
two very different.
Yeah, they're very
things.
distinct.
Yeah.
I don't think I was thinking too hard about splitting hairs like that. So if that's FERPA, we don't need to ask.
Yeah,
that,
anything
obviously.
academic related,
Yeah.
either we can't provide anything
How-
grades, anything like that.
Can I ask you then, as people who have existed and maybe my fellow people at the table on our side know this question, like, what is the use of this? Like, what is the use of the old 4.3, the new 4.5? Like, what is the point? Cause I was just trying to make it more specific and more actionable.
Also, it says only for teaching
For
assistant
teaching.
appointments, so maybe we should probably say GA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I struck out teaching. So I think that's something,
Oh, you did.
again, if,
It seems to me language that and I wasn't on the prior bargaining team, but it looks like language that that DAU probably would have wanted in there, because they're asking to be provided information. So maybe they felt like they didn't have enough information about what teaching assistants were being evaluated on or something. I mean, that's how I kind of read that.
I guess this too, the way it's written, and sorry, I guess I was arguing a more specific point. All this says is upon written request, GAU shall be provided written information regarding established guidelines for assistant progress and reappointments. So that's not necessarily student level progress. It's what are the guidelines that that student has, right? So it's asking like, what do they need to do to progress and get a reappointment? Not necessarily, are they doing that progress for reappointment? It's like, what does the department say that they need to do?
Anything academic related regarding academic progress is outside the scope of this agreement, so we can't agree to anything on that,
But
so.
we're not asking for like a
Student
specific
level.
student's grades. We're like,
asking
we're
for the
saying like,
guidelines
yeah,
that
what
they
is the
follow.
guideline that is like issued
Mhm.
But
for the
still, that's like,
reappointment?
we can't bargain for what each department would consider to be appropriate academic progress.
No,
Just
that's,
kind of-
fine.
That's not a-
But we wanna know what they consider to be appropriate.
That's what I'm saying, that I don't think we can even agree to provide, in this agreement, which was not regarding anything regarding academics is just regarding your employment. It's kind of outside the scope of what we can even,
It wouldn't it be in the
Consider
program
bargaining
documents?
for.
Cause it would have to be in the academic program documents.
yeah, I mean,
wouldn't it?
that's really a because
Yeah,
that's nothing
but I-
that we can.
Taking a step back, my reading of this 4.3 was that, like, there's a line in letters, like the ones that I've seen, that say, hey, you're gonna be a teaching assistant. This may include grading, meeting with students, and it basically, it has a list of things that are related to the job,
Assistantship.
to the assistantship and the employment, not really, it doesn't say you need to keep a 3.0, or,
Mhm.
I think that's what this is about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And I thought I read 4.5, like you were saying, like, the initial letter of offer is going to be broad, it's going to say, you'll have a teacher
Right.
assistantship. But, and there's no specific details in that, because
The
it
letter
might
of
be,
appointment.
the letter of appointment is more of the detail.
Right.
Okay, you're gonna be doing SYD 2000 and, for, however many hours and whatever. I thought that's how I'm reading the
Yeah.
old 4.5. I'm not reading it as a progress thing, so I might be
Okay.
missing something.
Yeah.
It's not
I
about-
could have just
so-
focused on something
This is
unnecessary.
like, I don't think, at least on my own individual level, right, as the person who was kind of taking the main writing on this, I'm not trying to sneak something in
Yeah.
or anything, so if there's language that you all wanna propose that makes this more clear, that's all my intention was just trying to make this old 4.3 more clear.
Mhm.
Obviously, more details will be helpful, because what does it say? I honestly don't think.
It
we know.
almost looks like it should be split, like the old 4.5.
Oh, sorry, it's the old 4.3.
Okay.
It's the new 4.5.
Okay, nice.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I have so many sections that we're like,
And also all the formatting stuff is,
it's so
Okay.
weird.
But we understand.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, while, like, that first part of it should go up to your new letter of offer, like, wow, this, and then the reappointments is separate issue.
Right, right.
It's a separate issue.
Yeah.
In language of reappointment. That's, but I'm on the wrong article, so. really-
It's all good, yeah, so as much as you guys can help us in trying to figure out what that means and what exactly you can provide, I think our intention was always, we're trying to support students. Right, and so more information on what their guidelines are will help us figure out what we need to say on their behalf.
Yeah, I think at the 30,000 foot up level, what I think I'm hearing, and I think we can probably agree to, certainly in principle, is, look, when you come here, the terms and conditions of your employment in terms of what your supervisor is expecting of you need to be explicit and communicated so that you understand what those expectations are.
Exactly.
Furthermore, if we have to represent that person in an evaluation matter or in a separation matter that includes performance, we would like to have access to the documents relevant to making that determination.
That's exactly.
And
what it
I
is.
think, I think we can get behind, I think we can get behind that in principle. Because
then-
you'd be entitled to that information pretty much anyway,
Yeah,
specifically with respect to employment, so.
but the issue is that, I mean, when you first come in, that's not necessarily like whatever is in your letter of appointment, like saying, oh, you get, 5 years of teaching assistantship, but you're not necessarily, tied to doing that
Mhm.
teaching assistantship for
Right.
5 years, right? You might do an RA, you might teach a different class,
Mhm.
right? And then those job requirements would be different, right?
Mhm.
But they should be outlined in your annual letter of.
Yeah,
Okay,
appointment,
okay.
Right.
Right.
Oh, you're saying it should be in the letter of appointment,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
offer.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Right, I mean, I think that's,
Okay, I misunderstood what you said.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
Recruitable.
Mhm.
Now now you're coming. Here's what you're really gonna do.
No, I thought you had said letter of offer when you first was saying, yeah,
Mhm.
sorry, my bad.
all right,
so
we'll work on giving you some,
what
giving
you
you some
just
stuff.
said is the intention. I
Right.
think it's the existing intention, and I can tell you that it was my intention, right? It's just
All
trying
right,
to
we-
clarify what we might need to defend.
Yeah,
the student.
we'll work on wordsmithing something that we find,
Acceptable.
ensures that we're not even
Fine.
there's no possibility it could be construed as violating FERPA.
Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. And honestly, I was saying the person level, but looking back at the original language, it's not, it's guidelines. So what do they need to progress through their program? Is it that they need a 3.0 GPA and a this and a that to continue receiving their assistantship, right? Because you need to be in good academic standing to receive your assistantship.
Yeah, so I think if you're gonna get to that at some point, because I know it's farther down, it's probably the new 410 or 411, whatever it's gonna be. I think that on that specific component, we are going to want to make very, very general reference to maintaining academic standing
Mhm.
and not getting into the criteria, even like the 3.0, like, it's gonna be, you've got to maintain good standing as determined by your department.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. It's just,
Okay.
are they still progressing through?
Yeah.
Because that's what I can tell you that's what my letter says, right? Is like contingent on your successful, like, progress
Academic
through.
progress,
Right.
And it's completely vague. So
Right.
I think what I was trying to get at is what exactly does that mean?
Right.
Because if they're not satisfying some little bit that's not spelled out in the appointment letter,
Yeah.
we need to know that so that we can understand what the department's trying to say if we're defending a student, right? Okay. Anyway, moving on to 4.6, I didn't change any language. I did add a comment in here, and this is going to start to become like if this other thing that we have later on doesn't work out, this might be something that we want to change, right? Is adding additional time for, like, reappointments. Anyway. All that language is the same. For 4.7, the university recognizes that last minute appointments or reappointments may occur as a result from, I just tried to clarify that language was just a little bit weird. As a result of such things like grants received, resignation of another graduate assistant, it said like the resignation of another bargaining unit member. I was just like, we're talking about other graduate assistants within the department, right?
Yeah.
Or the need to add teaching sections because of enrollment growth. Such appointments shall be made in as timely a manner as possible, as needed. That's all that says.
do
I
we,
just tried to
yeah,
tighten up the language that existed.
do we need to read into why this is no longer something that you guys recognize?
What does that mean?
You carved yourselves out. It previously said the parties. I mean, it's just a standard statement, but it's now just us. I didn't know if there was
We
something.
Also recognize, we
Okay.
just don't have any authority to do reappointments, so I didn't think it was really We
It's-
also we recognize all the other things. that
Yeah,
we
well,
said
I
the
think that-
University recognized on too.
I think the joint recognition actually has some value from our perspective, and the fact that it wouldn't be something that you would later be like, well, you guys recognize it, but we don't, even though it's weird because it's in a ratified contract that you guys would have to ratify, so you're demonstrating a tacit recognition.
Yeah.
But I think
Oh,
if you have a recognition statement that only one group recommends, it just seems, or recognizes, it just seems a
then
little.
we should adjust that language throughout the other pieces too.
That's fine.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
Okay, here's where we start to get into what is probably the biggest stuff.
Okay.
So this is now changes in appointment. I think we're now in the new 4.8,
Yeah,
but it looks.
I
like
did
it's
try to put in
crossed
some
out. I don't know.
comments to try and clarify.
Okay, yeah, the
Yeah, so
formatting.
the new
Yeah.
4.8. Okay, the university shall provide written notice, right? So that I believe was language you added last time, to a GA whose employment, unit, assignment, or supervisor changes during the appointment term.
Okay,
I think that's exactly what you guys.
I think
brought last
that
time.
looks very, I think that
Mhm.
is what we had.
And it's in
provided
green,
last
so I
time.
don't think it's stuff I wrote.
Okay,
Okay, so now 4.81, in the case of a change to the collective bargaining agreement, the university will communicate all the changes to the affected appointees via official email, right? So this is what we've been talking about. And then skipping over all the stuff that's crossed out to the last sentence, the changes will be detailed on an official university letterhead and signed by a university designee. All changes will be incorporated into the affected GA's subsequent letters of appointment. Just trying to spell out what that process would be. Again, we're not doing reappointment letters, which you guys very clearly said you didn't want to do. All this is saying is if we change the minimum stipend in the middle of a semester, you guys will send a letter on official letterhead via email, not via mail,
right.
to everyone who's affected.
So when you say all changes will be incorporated into the letter of appointment, like if we do full book, I can't imagine your expectation is that we literally
Just the
incorporate the full
details
book.
that are already in the letter of appointment, just the details that are already in the letter. Right, so that's all I'm trying to capture, is if we change these things that we said, right?
Okay.
You'll send an email,
Mm-hmm.
and then any changes that affect that individual student will be reflected in their further letters. I'm not trying to say, yeah. Exactly. Right, so like their current letter of appointment that says the old number won't change. You'll just send a letter that says, hey, you're going up from 17 to 19.2. Not in the letter of appointment, and then their next letter of appointment, 100% needs to say 19.2 on it. That's all I'm trying to say.
Understand.
About the bi-weekly on an email,
What do you mean?
no, the appointment letter, it says your salary and your bi-weekly stipends.
Yeah, obviously that will need to be reflected in the new letters of appointment.
Not the mass email.
No, the big change needs to be in the email, and then the individual details for that individual will be in there following, which I think is what's already happening. I just wanted to spell it out on the paper.
So if we could draft one letter that it says the minimum stipend is changing to this.
Yeah, and you are going to
And
be
send it
affected
to
by this
everybody.
change. Mhm.
And we don't have to tell each, it doesn't have to be addressed to each
Exactly.
individual GA.
But it needs to be on a letterhead and signed by a designee.
Mhm.
So that they
So
know
it's
that this is an official change to your contract, right? That's the intention. Do you have something to say? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Right? That's all we've been trying to say the whole time, and it seems like this is kind of where you guys were at, and so we just want to make sure that students know that this is an official change, and if they have somehow missed all of this stuff going on in the union, right? They are unaware of bargaining, they're in their own little world doing whatever they're doing, all of their research, 80 hours a week. We want to make sure they receive an email that says, hey, your stipend's going up, or hey, you're getting a $533 raise, right? That's the only thing that we want them to know, and we want them to know that that's official and that that's coming down from the university via the bargaining process.
All right, we can work with that.
Okay. Okay, the next section, now we're into, this is B, thank you, Sikander. Any appointment may be curtailed, diminished, or terminated at any time only by one of the following reasons. Continued failure to perform duties as specified in the letter of appointment after written notification from the department. I then added, oh no, this might be, did you guys add this?
I think we added this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's from the UFF. Yeah, I had the intention to do that. So great. Glad that you guys are on the same page. Okay, 2, failure, that's all the same. 3, incompetence or misconduct of the employee that is documented by the department and follows, I added and follows the steps of formal discipline laid out in Article 21. right? 21 is just the discipline article. That's where it says like, you're gonna get a written warning, and then you can be suspended without pay, and then all of this stuff. Right, so just kind of linking that to the other process.
So I think one of the things that would probably hinge on us being able to agree to that is you guys do not have within your Article 21 a specific statement of incompetency being part of your discipline. That's a significant difference between you guys and the UFF contract.
Okay.
Like it states incompetency as a just cause terminable thing.
Mhm.
You guys don't have that. So if we were gonna consider that, it would force changes in Article 21, like I
That's
said.
fine. We wanna bring article changes to 21 anyway, so
Okay, yeah.
you've got that as a note. We'll work on that. So maybe for right now, can we just kind of,
Yeah, I'm
let's leave that
giving you a
and
heads
we'll,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can deal with that when we get there. I think we wanted to do that anyway.
Mhm.
Spell out
We have
some
a
of the
lot
more
of changes,
formal-
yeah, to the discipline article.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then here's where we start getting into, lack of funds, right? So this has been a large discussion, okay? So in the case of 4.7B4, which is lack of funds, the university shall provide notice within 10 business days to the affected, GAs. Right, so I'm now gonna try to lay out some steps. You're gonna provide notice. You're gonna make every effort to reassign the affected employees for the duration of their current appointment period as detailed in their active LOA, right? So that's been signed. That's a legally binding contract, as we've been talking about, right? That has been signed. Reassignment may be within or outside the department and must maintain the same stipend as detailed in their current LOA. And then 3, in the case that reassignment is not possible, the university will offer severance payments equivalent to the original salary to the affected GAs for the duration of their current appointment or up to 20 weeks, whichever comes first. Severance pay is prohibited if the GA has been fired through formal disciplinary process outlined in Article.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
added that because that's what it says in the statute. Yeah.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So we're pulling from, I believe,
The
one
statute that you sent
offered.
us, yeah.
Yeah, you offered it to us. Our interpretation is that the university can provide severance pay for up to 20 weeks. Right, and as we've been discussing, this is the thought that you could have 10 business days and suddenly you're out, right? Like, you're no longer being paid for your assistantship that you've signed a legally binding contract for. We're trying to build in some protections for students and give them some time to figure out what just happened to them and get some plans moving forward, okay?
Maybe we should let them. ask
Yeah, I was
questions.
gonna say, I'm sure.
I
you
don't
have questions.
think we have questions about that part. I'm not sure we interpret it the same way as you, but we will come back with something on that.
Okay. And then I believe everything else is struck out on that page, and then moving to the final part here. When the university has reason to believe that the employee is present on the job, that's all standard contract language that's existed. But then again, now we have GAU will receive a notification if a GA's appointment has been terminated and they have left the bargaining unit.
This is also again to help us with the e-dues stuff, like we don't wanna be charging people,
Mhm.
past their employment, for dues, and yeah, otherwise there's no way for us to really keep track of that except for self-reporting, which most people probably wouldn't know, so.
Mhm. And then I'm pretty sure the new 4.9, which I think says 4.7, we didn't make any changes to that, I don't think, except maybe specifying 4.8 instead of 4.7 because the numbers have been changed.
Mhm.
But all those green changes are language you brought last time. And then for the new 4.10, which is that last like weird summer appointment part, I again just tried to specify continuing 9-month employees, right? With assignments during successive academic years may also be appointed in the intervening summer term. And then you guys added, provided that the employee continues to meet all their academic requirements. So that's, I put 9 months, but everything else is same. And that is, sorry, you had to listen to me for so long.
No, it's
The
fine.
Changes to Article 4.
No, I appreciate, you guys clearly spent a lot of time addressing, we've talked about so many different parts of this article for so long. So I think I appreciate that you guys kind of took this one on to try to reduce so many of those different issues into, arguably, this is one of the most complicated articles in the entire contract.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
I think
um,
we started.
Oh my God. So much, but I really, all of my intentions here is to put agreed upon actions, right? These are things that are happening onto the paper, right? So this is a bunch of stuff that's already happening that is not spelled out in the contract. I think we just need to define everything so that once we're on the same terms.
Yeah.
We can at least then move forward and get into the more nitty gritty, like, we want support for people if they get like curtailed, right? And obviously those differences are gonna, right? Those differences are gonna play out, but we
Right.
need to be on the same footing. To begin with, to make that really.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I would agree that I think that on the overwhelming. It appears that on the overwhelming number of
Mhm.
provisions, I think we have common understanding. It's just getting it properly codified so that we can, like you said, have that good
And it's a
baseline.
Proposal, and we know that you're
Yeah.
gonna bring a counter proposal, but yeah.
No, I
we
think
just
I
want-
think it's great. And like I said, I appreciate that you all took it on and then went through the entire thing, because it was, this one's a gnarly article.
It's been really weird, yeah,
So,
okay, cool. Thank you.
thanks.
Any other questions, I guess?
We're gonna have to
Yeah.
have some chats about that one. We'll come back. We may have more questions, but
Okay, cool.
So that is it from our end.
okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
I like.
All right, so here's what we can do. I have three. That neither of us have proposed on, that just really as a perfunctory matter, we want to put across the table as formally current contract language. Just so that we can say that we've technically bargained them.
Mhm.
And if you guys have changes, that's perfectly fine. So the first one is, I'm just gonna give them to you all together. It's, and if you have questions, you can ask, but it's literally a CCL. They're all CCL proposals.
Okay.
So it's 9, 18, and 9, 18, and 23. So, we're more than happy to
So
have,
we did indicate that we're bringing proposals for 9.
that's fine. That's fine.
Sorry, which are those, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, so
Are
9
those-
is, or 18 is insurance deduction,
9 is academic.
9 is academic freedom, and 23 is totality of agreement.
And then you said 23 is totality?
Totality of agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Sikander, you guys are welcome to. I just even left them in the folders there for you.
Mhm.
Like I said, we probably don't need to go into, we have one that we have some changes on, so we could probably spend time talking about that one.
Sure.
But just so that we've officially put it across the table for your consideration.
I mean, I think you can keep the 9 one
Okay.
because we will actually.
You're gonna
bring
have
real
something for it.
proposal,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine. All right, so the next one we have that has some changes to it is 15. You don't see it fast.
Thank you. We share one, you guys have.
Over here.
Thank you.
Ah, perfect.
Are you sending that?
Right now.
Okay.
All right, so, I don't think these necessarily represent giant changes, but, we do want to kind of go through them with you. And in the title of the article, we're recommending a change from removing the word financial, because some of these things frankly aren't financial. It covers a much more broader topic than just that. Also, it had, one of them was plural and one was singular, so I'm just suggesting a change on that. We want to make sure that the term conflict of interest is effectively defined, because it wasn't. So we just want to make sure that the definition of the term conflict of interest is anchored in the university regulation that defines that term. Again, I don't think that necessarily changes the meaning of the provision, but it cleans it up in a perspective of letting everybody know, look, when we say conflict of interest, this is how it's defined. This is what we mean. These are what the overriding regulations are from a university perspective. And then 15.2, report of outside activity. We want to make sure that people understand a couple things. One, that, when an employee wants to engage in one of these things, they really have to make sure that they take these steps before they start doing it. It can't be like, well, I'm gonna start doing it, and then at some point in the future, let the university know. And then the reporting shall be done either through Ufolio or using the disclosure form approved by the UF Conflicts of Interest Program. Just so there's a standard way. It shouldn't be just an email to your boss and be like, hey, by the way, I've taken on this other research project. That's cool, right? Like it has to be through one of the appropriate recognized channels. And then regardless of reporting method, all such activities shall be disclosed in accordance with the University Regulation 1.011. And again, that's just to make sure that everybody is clear on what are the expectations, what are the rules of the road, how is this program, which can be somewhat, frankly, very complicated. Everybody exactly understands where they should go to get the most important information regarding it. Now, the only other thing that I want to actually talk about something that isn't in 15, which is the, if you remember from the TA, it was the actual it was the prohibition of prohibiting outside employment, if you remember,
Right.
the prohibition of prohibiting it. Initially, we thought that maybe we were going to put that here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually move that to the article on other employee rights. Because oftentimes those, after I had some good conversation with the COI office, oftentimes those things don't have really anything to do with a typical conflict of interest. So they had recommended, and I think it makes sense that we consider putting that actually just in other employee rights as we previously agreed to. We're not going to.
Which article is that again?
Other employee rights, because we had some other changes that we're not ready to give you. Other employee rights.
Or is it 19 or something?
It's 20, Article 20, which we're not ready to bring. So I don't want you to think that because it's not here, that we don't want to include that provision somewhere. It just, we don't think that, we would like this article to remain super focused just on this one aspect. Because
Okay.
other employee rights is already kind of a amalgam of a bunch of different individual provisions.
Sure.
So, so any questions on this?
I think I have a question, but I've been typing, so I need to like look at the language. I think my question really is for prior to engaging in the activity.
Mhm.
Like, is there a specific timeline that you're expecting from them, or is it just like, how long do these processes take? If you have to go through these,
It
like,
depends on how complicated
Okay.
the outside activity is. I mean,
Okay.
it can be it can require a significant amount of analysis depending on what
so
it is.
basically they need to start going through these processes before they start doing that thing, and they need to finish it before they start doing that.
That's
thing.
correct.
Okay, cool.
That's correct.
Sorry, I just wanted to look at it, not typing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the university-wide way this works.
It makes sense. I
Yeah.
just wanted to,
I just wanted to get you guys in line with kind of how COI is looking at conflicts across the university. Yeah.
thank you.
So with regard to, well, we don't have proposals for you with respect to,
Actually,
go
wait,
ahead.
one more thing.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
could you again tell me what was the reasoning behind not having it here and having it under employee rights?
because we really don't think it has anything to do with the COI, the conflict of interest policy is extremely complicated and the process. What we don't want people to get confused about is those other employment activities, which in no way, shape or form would represent a conflict of interest. We don't want them to start thinking that they have to follow this process for doing
I
that.
see, okay.
Because
Like
it's
getting like a server job. type.
Not
exactly.
everything is a reportable.
Yeah,
outside
okay.
activity,
You wouldn't,
so-
yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about that. That may be something, depending on the situation, you may tell your boss, hey, look, I'm, on Fridays, I need to take off, or I want to have to work out your whatever. But it doesn't have to go through the COI office because you're working on Saturdays for, DoorDash.
So, I mean, in that, the language we TA'd in Article 10,
Mhm.
it did include a portion about reporting to UFOEO.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, we
And
were
we're gonna
trying to
take that part out.
okay.
The other,
okay.
we wanted to separate it. We're very worried about, after we've had time to sort of go through the full book, we don't want to conflate those two things. It's already I'm not gonna lie, this is something that there's a lot of work that is spent helping people through the Ufolio process already. We don't want to make it any more complicated or burdensome for anybody than it already is, because it is already a very, very complicated and difficult thing for some of our folks to get through.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so we do not have counters for you today on a couple, but we did want to talk about them. So if we could talk for a minute about Article 11.
Just give me 1 second,
Sure.
make sure I filed everything.
Can you tell me what article? is that?
Tuition program.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And this is kind of really the last thing that we have to talk about today, unless you guys want to address something else. So in Article 11, we had some good conversation last time. You have presented a proposal that sort of wanted to increase the cap of tuition. We have done significant analysis. Tom and Judy in the grad school have undertaken some significant analysis. You know, I think the door is still open. You thought that maybe you have some cases that you think are pretty compelling.
Mhm.
We're still open to talking about those cases. But when we did our analysis, we really didn't find evidence of them. So if you could, it would be useful if you've got some names or some UFIDs or some civic programs. I mean, it was a pretty aberrant number. It was pretty tiny.
Right, so we could see examples where students were registered for more than the minimum. But in a lot of cases, as we went through them, we'd be like, oh, well, that student's on a fellowship, so that was paid for, that was going on there, so. Again, still looking if you got cases, because some of those are conversations I'd like to have with the units anyway, if that's going on.
Mhm.
But we didn't see like a big chunk of data, like, oh, here's a program that's doing this, so.
It seemed like there were individual cases of like some other funding mechanism that was supporting and paying for and or requiring the
Right.
over enrollment.
Or in some cases, and again, this probably wouldn't be directly related, but the student may have registered for more to qualify for more financial aid for another reason or some other reason besides they're required to. But that still might be happening. So if you have those, let us know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think when we presented it, we also said that like, we don't know about
Right,
that many
right.
cases. Like
Yeah.
this was something, a suggestion that had come from like
Yeah.
before my time on the bargaining committee.
Mhm.
So, it's not something we think is super widespread, but it
Okay.
is something we wanted to, have in there in case it does happen.
Yeah.
And so that's also why we thought like budgetary implications were probably minimal, for this, but
So I think what our concern is, without some other compelling case, is the fact that it could lead to changes in behavior. In other words,
okay,
once the provision, like the unforeseen budgetary impact, we think it could be dramatic and significant. I think and we wouldn't know what it would be until the rules of the road change, if that makes sense.
mhm,
So while it may not be an issue now, it may significantly alter what people choose to do once it exists. So I think that's a significant concern that we have.
okay. That is fair. We are still working on kind of coming up with examples about
Okay,
that.
that's fine.
And, I am in contact with the previous, not even the previous chief partner, like
The previous.
yeah. And so, that is the most likely person to have.
Okay, that's great.
concrete answers about
Yeah,
that,
we'd be
so.
happy to continue that conversation.
Sure, great.
I
So-
wonder too if some of those issues have been kind of fixed in the wash of other changes that have been made with the increase to 0.5 and, because it was a lot
Right.
of master students.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so if master students.
Yeah, I
weren't
think
on
it
point-
was a master's
like,
student problem,
It's
but
possible that some of the other changes at the university have made it less of an issue, even though
It's
I'm sure
possible,
that there are
yeah.
still a few doing it, but.
And the master students we saw in the data,
Mhm.
a lot of them were combination degrees. And so and some of them were prepaid.
Okay.
So they could have chosen to take more as well. So also, we want to make sure students are making academic progress. And if they're taking more classes, right, that's great for academic progress, but they're also being time committed at a certain FTE that is contradictory. And so they wouldn't have, in theory, enough time to do academics. because
Right.
They're working so much. So it could be a problem in that regard. We don't want that for the students. So if you do have particular instances.
is there like a certain amount of time that you consider to be like too much time or
Well,
like
I
not
think
enough
the
time?
Registration per FTE of the GA.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we weren't here when that came to fruition.
Yeah.
But I think that was the main philosophy, the kind of ground rules for that is like, if in general, without an appointment, the minimum registration sits around 12, right? 12
Right.
credits, but that's not working. Then if you're telling the student now, or giving them an offer of, hey, now you have to work 20 hours a week, well, you can't, your academic progress might not be at a good pace. So I think in theory and in spirit, that that's how those powers that came together, GAU probably and administration to come up with that, like, okay, so they can have a reduced registration because their time now is spent teaching and doing research by work. That's what I think, so.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I did not think that.
All right. So. That's a,
Well, those are
Did you get
notes
the
for
group?
my,
Oh, okay.
well, I have to keep notes for myself so that I don't forget. Okay, that's cool. So I guess you don't have any.
that's what we,
further
yeah, those are
proposals?
the ones that we've got for you today,
Okay,
so.
we are working on some other proposals.
Okay.
And I can let you know early next week what we're planning to bring.
Well, I'll try to do the same thing, just so that we're not necessarily crossing the stream, so to speak.
So.
I think the volume is probably gonna start slowing down though. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna have 4 more, like, I don't know.
No, I
We're gonna
think
run
now we're
out
gonna
of,
get starting to the more complicated ones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the next, which is, I believe, 11/6, right? November 6th.
yeah, cause
Uh,
not next Friday.
Right.
Or the following Friday, which is Veterans Day, but so the afternoon of the 6th, we have an hour.
Right.
And it's an online session because
Yeah.
we have bargaining immediately after it.
Yeah, and I want to be sensitive about that. So do you want us to limit the number of proposals? Because we were each, I mean, 4 of us were working on a proposal. So if that's too much.
If you're
then
gonna
we
have
can
them, if you're
reduce.
gonna have them ready, I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be great to exchange them. If you guys are planning on bringing 3 or 4 though, I don't know if we would have time for us to also give you 3 or
Right,
4.
yeah,
So if you guys if we can just kind of temporarily plan on, let us work on proposing to work on responding,
okay.
but we will plan on you guys kind of quote unquote being up. And then we will plan on the subsequent session. We will plan on starting with our various proposals. If that's okay with you guys, we can sort of plan on that as an approach.
That is good with us, and we are also planning to to propose a couple in the red category at the end of the semester. So, you know, scorecard that you would.
Yeah, I got it right here. That's fine.
But the upcoming session would probably be more in the intermediate category.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I think this was another very productive and good, it was a good session. I think we got through a lot of really good stuff, and thank you for your work, especially on Article 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you in a bit.
Okay, just be brief here.